Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome to a new edition of the Sports Shop 27. I'm your host, Jermaine Cota, and today's special guest, we got a Texans in the house tonight. This guy right here played college ball in Illinois, went to the Houston Texans, played there a little bit besides the Hall of Famer Andre Johnson. Y'all help give it up for Mr. Alfonso. Pough. What's going on, Alfonso?
Man, appreciate you having me on, Jermaine. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, no
just,
problem.
Just chilling. You know what I'm saying? Hanging out.
That's what's up, man. For the people that don't know you, let them know a little bit about your background and where you from.
Yeah, man. So I'm from Illinois, a small town in Illinois called Galesburg, Illinois. Town about 26,000 people now. Central Illinois. And then I ended up playing football there. I played football, ran track, and then I played basketball. So I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. And then I ended up getting a scholarship to Truman State University.
Okay.
And then I played receiver there. And then kind of, things kind of went from there when it came to getting selected to go play for the Texans. So that's kind of brief background on me.
All right.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Illinois in the 90s? I know we graduated the same year, around the same age.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Man, it was like I said, small town, right? Hot as hell in the summer, super humid, and cold in the winter. You know what I'm saying? But it was good because growing up in a small town, you had that kind of camaraderie already because everybody knew everybody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I guess kind of going back, man, I started playing sports when I was 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
Basketball actually was my first kind of like sport, man. That was like really what I wanted to play. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Started playing at the YMCA and just kind of went from there. Then got into JFL, played JFL football, and then I took like a year off because I wanted to play basketball, and so just work on my basketball skills and stuff like that. So I didn't play my 7th grade year.
Okay.
But then I ended up playing 8th grade, and then just went on and played in high school from there. Yeah, man. Yep.
So who were some of the people that you looked up to growing up as a kid in your area? Was it a family member, a friend, or a former high school, someone who went to your high school, or was it like a professional athlete?
Yeah, I'd say like the first like athlete I really started looking up to was Warrick Dunn. I mean, man, like because in high school I was a running back, so I was 6'3", 195 pounds, running back. Wanted to go to Florida State. That was like it for me. I'm like, I'm going to Florida State, going on a full ride, and I'm playing running back. But then I started thinking, like, man, I'm 6'3" and skinny. Like, I don't know if that's gonna work. So, I mean, I still played running back all through high school. I didn't really start playing receiver until like my senior year. When they kind of started, split me out in certain formations, playing me in the slot in certain formations, and that's kind of when I really started, playing receiver. But I probably had a handful of touches at receiver in high school. I really didn't even start playing receiver till my freshman year of college. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. You have any siblings or any, that play sports as well?
Yeah, man. So my brother, I got an identical twin brother. Yeah, so identical twin. He he's bigger than me. He's like 6'6", like 260. He a big dude.
Okay.
But he played basketball. Like basketball was his sport, and then obviously football was mine. But that helped a lot because I mean we always played sports together. You know what I'm saying? It was always great to just have somebody to like share those memories with, and just grind with. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Well, who's the oldest?
I am by 4 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So you only have one sibling that played basketball as well. Did
So
he?
he was my twin, but then I'm one of nine. You know
Oh,
what I'm
you
saying?
one of nine?
One of nine, yeah. So
Okay.
like we're like 18 years juniors. I mean, so our basically our youngest sister's 18 years older than us. Yeah, so like we was the babies, you know.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Man, that's dope. So, did you play any baseball or anything, t-ball growing up?
Yeah, man. So man, I played baseball like I played like kind of like junior league baseball, right? I think my last year I played baseball. I think I was like 6th or 7th grade. Um and
Okay.
looking back on it now, I was telling my kids a while back, I was like, man, I should have probably just kept playing baseball too. I mean, you know, man, like man, they making the money now. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
But to me, it was kind of like, man, baseball was like boring. So I'm just like, I want to play baseball just to stay in shape for basketball, and I want to play football just to stay in shape for basketball. So that was kind of why I kind of chose that path with playing 3 sports. But you know, man, growing up, I'm sure y'all was the same way. Like everybody played everything. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You just did everything growing up. So
Yeah. So, on the off seasons, like who were some of your coaches that developed your skills in those sports?
yeah. So I mean, so really, man, back then, like for me, like going to camps and stuff like that really wasn't, I guess, a big thing until probably my junior going into my senior year.
Okay.
Man, before that, like in the off season, I'm running up routes with my brother. He's throwing me passes in the backyard. Man, we're doing yard work. We're just, you know, helping my dad around the house doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Just keeping busy. That's kind of what we did. You know?
Yep. Yep. Kind of the same here. So, you go into high school.
Yeah,
The 3 sports that you stuck with was what, basketball, football, and track.
yeah, yeah.
So, did you play varsity in all 3 sports your first freshman year, or did you play JV?
So my freshman year for all of them, I played, you know, freshman ball. My sophomore year for football is when I started kind of to move up to varsity, and I pretty much split time between playing sophomore ball and then playing kind of towards the end of the games on varsity. Um, Basketball was kind of like freshman year I played freshman ball, and then sophomore year I started dressing for varsity. So, you know, I pretty much played varsity sophomore year on after that when it comes to basketball. And then for track, I mean, we had a really good track team, so I pretty much ran track varsity all 4 years. Um, we you know, I mean, we broke a ton of records, and that was a really good sport to just you know, keep us in shape, because you know track shape is way different than football shape, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you going in there like, yeah, I'm in shape, and then you start hitting them 200s and 400s, and you're like, ah, man, I need to slow down a little bit, you know.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it was fun, man, you know.
So, in basketball, what position did you play?
So I played I played the 2, 3, kind of depending on, you know, matchups, 2, 3, or 4, 4 or 5. I mean, just kind of depending on who we had in the game. Pretty much every position except for point.
I understand.
So yeah,
It's matching up, or whoever your opponent was, your coach had
yeah,
you. Okay, cool. So, your brother, did he play the same position as well, or did he play? Did you guys start together?
yeah. So he was obviously bigger than me. He was 6'5", 6'6" then. So
Wow.
he played post for basketball, and then he played 1 year of football, and then in high school. Now, growing up with junior ball, we played all years together. I mean, he was just as big as me, just as fast as me, just as strong. Like he was really a better athlete than I was when we were younger, because he was just like built like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, that's kind of how that played out.
All right. Who were some of y'all rivals in high school?
Man, so back then it was like the Western Big Six.
Hmm.
So I mean, you had like Rock Island High School was always a huge high school that we played. Moline High School was a huge high school that we played. I mean, you had like Alleman, that was a big high school. So a lot of the high schools in the Quad Cities,
Yeah.
Quincy Blue Devils,
Okay.
was another big high school. So those were kind of like our main rivals.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
What division were you guys in? Was it a different conference? Was it 5A, 4A, or was it just like Division One,
Man,
two?
I'm trying. I mean, it was. I want to say we was like. I'm trying to think back because now the classes done changed so much. I know we were like one of the biggest classes. I want to say we was like a 4A school. Because now I think we're 3A. So I think we was like a class above back then.
Same with us, man. I was
Yeah.
4A high school, and now they're 3A. So
Yeah,
it's
man.
crazy. Yeah, man. So talk about Friday Night Lights, man. I know you've seen that movie before. What
Oh
was
man,
that
like
in Chicago on Friday nights for high school football?
man, I mean, like to be honest, I tell people all the time, man, like Friday night lights and Friday games in high school, even though I, went to college, pro and all that, man, it was some of the best times ever. Even though we sucked, I mean, freshman year varsity, we was 0-9.
Wow.
Sophomore year, we was 2-7. Junior year, we was 2-7. And then senior year, I think we was 2-7. So we didn't like win a lot of games, but the Friday Night Lights, man, was just dope. Like it was some of the best memories because you're playing with your boys, like you going out there, like, hey man, you gonna show out. It's Friday night, like you just out of school, everybody gonna be at the game,
Yep.
so you ready to just get it in. And man, it was just fun, man. I mean, it's good memories.
Yep. So talk about one of your best games that you had while you played on varsity. You can talk about football or base or basketball.
Yeah, man. Well, I'd say one thing too. I guess going back to basketball, um, one thing I learned, I guess early on was just about having confidence in yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because in high school, my junior year, I thought I was gonna play a lot, so I was kind of like, hey, I'm gonna decide between basketball or football. Well, I didn't end up playing a lot, and for whatever reason. And so then my senior year, I was like, hey, um, I'm just gonna have fun and just play. So we're playing over the summer, playing leagues and playing different tournaments. And I had a really good game over the summer. And I think we was playing some ranked team out of Chicago. I think I had like 23 or 24 points or something. Like halfway through the third quarter, I had like 6 or 7 3-pointers, like balling, right? So then, like after the game, one of the coaches came, or one of the coaches from Oral Roberts came up to my basketball coach, like, "Hey, uh, what's up with this Alfonso Pough kid? We might want to take a look at him." Well, I didn't think I had no type of talent to play basketball in college, so I was like, "Man, I'm just gonna go ahead and focus on football." Well, then dude said that, and I was like pissed, because I was like, "Damn, that's the sport I really wanted to play in college."
Yep.
But it kind of taught me, like, man, don't like put your trust in like coaches like 100% of the time. Like you got to have that confidence in yourself to
Oh,
really be like, hey man, look, I put in the work and I know I'm athletic enough. Like let me go ahead and do what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of kids nowadays, and even, I mean, just in general, just don't have that confidence in themselves. And it's like, man, just always believe in yourself first, before anything, you know.
right.
Um, but when it comes to football, man, like I say, probably one of my better games was probably against Quincy. I had like 100 and I think 70 some yards rushing that game, a few touchdowns. So I mean, it was kind of a breakout game for me. You know what I'm saying? So that was a good game. It was at Quincy. Um, yeah, I mean, I remember doing one of like you remember Tavian Banks used to be a huge running back, big time running back for Iowa. So like
Yep.
he always like stood at the end of the end zone like when he scored and just stared off in space. You know what I'm saying? So I had scored against Quincy, and I remember doing that on film, and my coach like got all in my ass about it the next day. But I'm like, hey man, like we won the game, so it don't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
But
So,
yeah.
so I know you said you guys didn't win a lot of games in high school and football, but in basketball, did you guys make it to the playoffs?
So my junior year, so we had this dude on the team, and you might have heard him. His name was Joey Range, right?
Mm-hmm.
My junior year, we had him and this dude named Rod Thompson.
Okay.
We ended up getting second in state my junior year. So
Well,
that's why I was kind of like, man, I'm gonna play a lot because I thought I was one of the better athletes on the team, so I can get looks from both sides. But we ended up getting second in state. We ended up losing to Quentin Richardson and like Gates and all those cats my
yeah.
junior year. So
Okay.
that was a great experience. Yeah, it was
What was it
dope.
like playing against him? Was he that skilled, and was he tall then, or he was like what 6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah, he was 6'5" then,
Wow.
but like it was just seeing like him. It was him. Gates was like number one freshman in the state. Then it was like Eccles, little cat that went to Marquette. I'm trying to remember his name. He was a point guard.
Okay.
I mean, they was it was nice. I mean, you knew he was gonna go to the league
Yeah.
because you could just tell. Like like you see dudes and you're like, hey, they're good. Then you see the other dude and you're like, oh, this dude different.
Yeah.
Like you just knew watching, like, yeah, he's a real deal.
Okay. How much did he score against you guys?
Man, I want to say Quentin had like 20. It was pretty spread out between all of them. I think he had 20. I think Gates had like 18 or something like that. I think all the starters had double figures, but they weren't like, he didn't have like 40 and everybody else like 10. I think it was spread out pretty good. So, yeah.
So what about D Wade? Did you guys play in his conference as well? I know he probably was a couple of years behind you, or either a year behind you.
Yeah, D Wade. I think they were one class bigger than ours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Conference.
Yeah, but we didn't play. I mean, he's a few years younger, so we didn't even play against them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, did you play in any All-Star games in high school for basketball or football?
Yeah. So, for football, I had a chance to play in an All-Star game, but I was injured, so I had messed my back up, so I didn't end up playing in that game.
Okay.
That was Shriner's game down at the University of Illinois.
Okay.
So it would have been fun to play because it seemed like there were some pretty good athletes in that game.
You think if you would have played in that game, you probably would have had a better opportunity to play at a different school or showcase, showcase your talent, or it was already set in stone?
Yeah, it was already set in stone. I guess one thing I would have done differently is like started going to camps more.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize. I'm like, man, you just go out and play, and you do your thing, and next season you do the same thing. But I didn't understand the exposure aspect of going to camps and doing all that stuff over the summer. So
yeah, it's 9 times out of 10 if you don't have a high school phenom that comes from your school where those college recruiters like have a lot of traffic coming in and just seeing what's next. It's kind of like you kind of lost in the fire if you don't go to those camps and showcase.
Yeah, you are because
back in the 90s at least,
man, that's how it was, bro. Because I remember like yeah, okay, I started getting recruited. I started getting a ton of letters, but you just on a mailing list, right?
Yeah.
And then I got invited to some spring games. Like I went to like University of Wisconsin spring game. Michigan State invited me to the spring game. Purdue invited me up to camp with them. So I was like, oh, I'm going D1. I'm going somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But when it came down to it, bro, I got one scholarship offer from Truman, and that was like what I took. And so when I went to college, I always had this chip on my shoulder because I'm like, man, bro, I know I'm way better than a lot of these cats out here. Like, how am I gonna get one offer? You know what I'm saying? So that's like fueled me like my whole college career. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna make these coaches, whoever it is, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna make these coaches just regret not recruiting me in college. So to go to college.
So you never took any visits to any other schools? I know you said you had letters coming to you.
Yeah.
Your junior year when you was playing basketball. For everybody watching, make sure y'all subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify and Deezer. We're gonna wait for Alfonso to come back in. It's a former Truman College wide receiver and former Houston Texan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, cool. Somebody called.
Man, yeah, man. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So I went to Purdue for camp there, and then I went to the Wisconsin. I was there when Barry Alvarez was the coach.
Okay.
So Ron Dane was like the running back the year.
Yep.
Bruh. Massive. Like I remember going into the locker room and we walked through because they had their little spring game or whatever. And my guy looked like a damn linebacker. I mean, and he's like laying on the table, and they're like, "Oh, what's up, Rod?" And I'm looking like, "What?" Like his legs was huge, and so I'm like, "Okay, this obviously what an NFL running back looked like." You know what I'm saying? So that was a good experience. But all these high Division ones, because I went my junior year, right? They're like, "Hey, we want you to come on, but we want you to come on as a preferred walk on."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Man, I ain't got no money to be paying for no preferred walk on. Like, I need something." But they're like, "Hey, if you do good, we'll give you a scholarship next year." I was like, "Man, I can't take that chance. Like, I'm gonna have to go ahead and take this scholarship money and go to Truman." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, during that time, Ron Dane, Ricky Williams, they were like the premier backs. I think
Man,
Ricky Williams had probably went like what 98, though. I think he came
yeah,
out before. But all of them both were all Americans, and they were like real big running backs for that, for that time. And back then the shoulder pads were huge. Uh,
huge, man.
like if you play corner, you see a corner with safety
Yeah.
linebacker pads back in. Some receivers too. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
So the
man,
style
yeah.
of play has really evolved and changed. Now they really don't even wear knee pads. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
I'll be looking like, man, these cats ain't padded up at all. I
I'd
mean,
be like, man, y'all boys making money, but y'all putting it all on the line without no pads on your knees, man. I couldn't
man,
do it.
nah, man, nah,
Yeah. Yeah.
not at all.
So you went to Wisconsin. You end up went to Wisconsin for the visit. You end up going to
Yeah.
Truman. Talk about Truman a little bit. Talk about the people that actually embraced you when you first got there, and what was the feeling like your first time on their campus.
Yeah, man. So like, I mean, really, honestly, I went there pissed, right? So I'm like, man, I'm coming here, like, I'm playing my first year, like, F these dudes, like, I'm doing it, right? So I go there and you know, one of my first one of the first people I ran into was this guy named Andrew Blakely, because we had to take this program to like get into the school, because it was like the Harvard of the Midwest. So it was like a real kind of like high end academic school, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted us to take this program for the athletes and for you to get accustomed and acclimated to the school. So he was my roommate, but he was a receiver on the team too. So we hit it off, and basically, man, we was like best friends all through college, and like he was like a top receiver on the team too.
Okay.
Um, but then when I got there, I'd say like uh, the other person that was really influential, like during my college career, was my position coach. Um, and he was, short, Caucasian cat, uh, never didn't really play sports, like not athletic. So at first I was kind of like, man, like, man, like, he don't know what the hell he talking about. Cause I always grew up like, man, if a good coach is a coach that plays sports and
Mm-hmm.
like has been through the trenches and understands, what I'm saying, like your mental space and all that
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yep.
So I started kind of like, okay, just watching him, the first like few months, and then I was like, dang, like, man, he kind of know what he's talking about a little bit. And then it just grew into like, man, this dude's like legit, right? And so he was like really a really good mentor for me in college, because I just learned a lot from him, from like a psychology standpoint, mental, how to really approach the game, and just like how to really just be a better man, let alone a better player, And so for me, that kind of changed my aspect a lot when it came to coaching. Like, man, you don't have to be a former player to be a great coach. Like, you can be a great coach that just knows his X's and O's, and that's how he was. And so yeah, um, so that was like one of the biggest things I probably learned like my freshman year. Was like, okay, yeah, like this dude knows what he's talking about. And we went from basically like being a pretty good offense when before I got there to like dominating like my junior year. I mean, broke all types of receiving records, broke some type of passing records. Like, I mean, we had tons of yardage per game when it came to offense, and just we just did great. I mean, he was just like that type of coach, and like he just understood like how to get the best out of people.
That's good, man. Because my next question was going to be, what type of offense did y'all run at Truman?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was pretty much a spread offense, right? But we really based it around like the slot position. So like my boy plays slot, and so like we ran a lot of the offense through him.
Okay.
through his position. But then we had, the X, the Y, and then we would go deep at times and stuff. But I mean, we go 5 wide a lot. We run trips a lot. And it was just like, man, we just threw the ball a lot all over the place. Yeah. But it was a spread offense. Yeah.
So were you guys NAIA? What conference were you guys in?
Yeah. So we were Division II. Yeah.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
Division II. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Got Alan Williams. Hey man, what's going on, Alan?
Man, there's my boy Alan. What's up, pimp?
All right. So talk about the competition in your conference. Name some of the teams and some of the players
Yeah.
that were standout players in your conference besides yourself.
Yeah, man. I say like the main schools we played was like Central Missouri State. They was
Mm-hmm.
always real good. Pittsburgh State was always real good, and then Northwest Missouri, like these cats won Division II every other year. I mean,
Okay.
pretty much, right? So like those were like really the three teams that was like when we was going to the season, if we beat them three, we were gonna have a good season. I mean, we went my junior year is when we really started to come like in our own as a team. We went 8-3 that year, so we had a good season, but we still didn't make playoffs because we had Pitt State, Northwest, and Central Missouri in our conference. And outside of that, I mean, those are the only three teams we lost to, but they all went to the playoffs that year.
All right.
So,
There was
um,
no bowl in y'all conference or anything like that.
no, I mean, we didn't end up going to any bowls, not in our conference. Um, and then I'd say like probably the top dude that was we played against was a guy named Todd DeVoe. He went to Central Missouri State. He was a receiver. So it was always kind of like one or two between who was the best between us. It was either a lot of people said it was me, some people said it was him. But I mean, it was a healthy, competition. You know what I'm saying? And then he ended up going to, and that's the thing too. It's all about just getting in with your right fit, right? Because he ended up going to, I think, the Ravens. So we both came out the same year, and then he ended up playing in the league for a few years. So
All right. Cool.
yeah.
So talk about your senior year. Did you guys went 8-3 your senior year, or that was your junior year?
My junior year. So my junior year, I guess a funny story there. So I go down to the office, and I'm going down to the office and stuff, checking in. And my coach was like, "Yeah, the Browns is here." And I'm like, "The Browns?" I was like, "The Browns?" It's like the Browns who? He's like, "The Cleveland Browns." I was like, who they here to see? They're here to see you. I'm like, huh? So just totally messed up my mental before practice. I'm like, bro, you couldn't have called me the night before and told me what was going on, because I came back my junior year and one of the position coaches was like, um, or not, yeah, I came back my junior year. One of the position coaches, he was like, man, I'm surprised you're back. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I didn't think he'd be back here. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I come back? Like, I still got 2 more years of college left. You know what I'm saying? But he figured I would have just transferred somewhere. So it was like I didn't understand, like, okay, I'm starting to get looks and people's like understanding like I'm pretty good and I could have left, but I didn't understand it because nobody never said nothing to me. So then my junior year when I come in, they're like, yeah, so and so's here to look. And I think that year like 18 teams came. But from a mental space, I was just like, damn, like I didn't think I was like, okay, I thought I was pretty good, but I didn't think I was like this. So then I was like, okay, let me like get my shit together, right? Excuse my French, but I'm like, let me figure this out. So I mean, that was interesting, I guess, going through that process. My junior year, kind of having guys come in, look, and then critique and stuff like that. So then I started realizing, like, man, I gotta start really like honing in, becoming like more of a student of the game, and just trying to hone in on my craft from that standpoint. Because a lot of teams started coming in looking at me because of my return skills. Because I was a returner too.
Yeah.
So like I did punt return, kickoff return. I think my first 3 or 4 weeks of my junior year, I had led the nation in kickoff return yards. So that's why a lot of guys started taking a look.
Okay.
So
That's dope. So you talked about your boy a lot. Were you guys in the same class, or was he an upperclassman?
No, we was in the same class. Yep, we was in the
Okay,
same
so you
class.
got a duo at this school. That's what's up.
Yeah, man. That was man. It was like a 1-2 punch, man. Because if you weren't throwing it to me on the outside, like you was throwing it to Andrew on the inside, and it was a rap game. I mean, since we ran the offense through him, like he broke tons of records and scored tons of touchdowns. He was little, so he didn't look like, you know, he'd be like that really athletic. But you get the ball in his hands, it was over.
That's
So
what's up, man.
yeah.
So your senior year, you finished up strong. What was your biggest, the most yards or touchdown you had in your career at Truman? Was it your junior year or your senior year?
I'd say it was probably my junior year because we had played Missouri Western, and I think total, I guess yards from scrimmage that game, I had like I think 317 or something like that. And it
Dang.
was like 100 and yeah, it was like 100 and some yards receiving, 170 some yards receiving, and it was like over 100 yards in returns, and yeah, that was a good game because uh, they were like, you know, Missouri Western was like a pretty good team, but they always like talked a lot. And so it was just fun playing them because we always knew it was going to be a good game, and everybody jawing back and forth, just good competition.
So Alan said the school of Rod Smith, Missouri Western.
Yeah, Rod Smith went to I don't know if he went to Mo West or not. I thought it was they was green and yellow.
Okay. Rod played
Yeah.
quarterback for them.
But yeah, he was a stud, man.
That's what's up.
He was actually somebody I looked up to in college because he was one, obviously, talked about it a lot because he had came from that conference, and he was, everybody, he was saying he was a no name once he got to the league, and we all know what happened there. I mean, he was a baller.
Yeah. You talking about the running back for the Vikings?
No, Rod Smith, the receiver
The
for the
receiver.
Broncos.
Okay. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
two.
yeah,
So yeah, that's Robert Smith, my bad. So
yeah,
you go into you leave your senior year.
yeah.
You got scouts looking at you. What was next for Alfonso Pough? Did you go in the combine? Did you have pro day at your school?
Yeah. So the crazy thing is, bro, is like my senior year. I remember when we first like started practicing, like our field was terrible, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was like walking on concrete. Like from a facility standpoint, it wasn't the greatest. Well, something was kind of always off. Like from the beginning of my senior year, I always felt tired, like just, didn't feel like in the greatest like shape. Well, come to find out, man, I would play with a stress fracture pretty much all season. And then I had plantar fasciitis in my foot. So I guess going back my junior year, they're like, hey, they kind of sent me there like, hey, you're looking at being a third round pick your junior year. This is kind of what we're looking at. I'm like, well, shit, I'm gonna stay another year. Like, why wouldn't I? You know what I'm saying? And I was kind of on that old school mentality, like, hey, get your degree because you don't know what's gonna happen. So I was like, man, I'm gonna get my degree, which, in hindsight was kind of stupid. I always could have went back to school, but I'm just like, man, that's how I grew up. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stay. Well, then my senior year, my stock dropped a lot because I had the plantar fasciitis, so I played with that all year. I had like $1,000 insert I had put in my I think it was my right foot for games, and then I had a stress fracture, and then I had separated shoulder. So like it was like a triple whammy. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of didn't help my stock as much, and then I couldn't even try. I couldn't go to the combine or try it, or didn't even have the chance to at the end of my senior year because I had to let my foot heal. So then I ended up running for the Texans. Man, it was on a rainy day. In the spring sometime. I ended up just running for them, and I ended up running like a 4.4, like I think a 4.43 or 4.42, something like that. And so that's what kind of got me like, oh shit, we need to look at this dude. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what was like, hey, we need to look at this guy. So that's kind of how like my senior year ended up. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so then it was between like the Texans, the Saints, the Raiders, and it was one other team, I believe, or what I was told, that was looking to bring me into camp. And the dope part about that is I actually signed a contract with the Texans on my birthday. So Yeah, yeah. I got it. Got the contract in the mail, and I signed it on my birthday. And I was like, I'll never forget that because I was like, man, that's a hell of a birthday present. You know what I'm saying?
It was your 23rd or 22nd birthday.
It's 22nd. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
So, man, going back in those times, man, game was different. I think Mike Vick was already in the league.
Yeah.
Um, you had Randy Moss, Andre Johnson coming out of
Yeah.
University of Miami. When you get to camp, talk about the feel of actually practicing and playing in the NFL facility. Talk about some of the teammates you met and the time you had there.
Yeah, man. So like, I mean, you get there, and for me, I'm kind of like starstruck at first, right?
Yeah.
And not necessarily starstruck with like the players, but just the overall like aura, the environment, just kind of like looking around, like shit, I'm actually here, like okay. So then, you get there and you're meeting players. I think one of the first players I met was Antoine Peak. He was
Yep. I
I think
remember.
that was Antoine Peak. He was a DN out of Cincinnati.
Yep.
And so he was like one of the first players I met. And then I met a safety from Louisville, and then we all rode over to the stadium together. So we're in there, Capers comes in and all that stuff. And so introduces, himself, obviously. And then we all got to get up and introduce everybody. And so obviously nervous as hell. But I think I was one of only two players in there that didn't play Division 1. Everybody else was D1.
That's what's
The
up.
other dude was Seth Lawn. He went to Northwest Missouri State, and then it was me. So, and he was a third round. I think they drafted him the third round out of the third round that year. Then I was obviously a free agent. But yeah, man, like it was just different, right? And then talking to like talking to the veterans, right? I'll never forget a conversation I had with Aaron Glenn. Remember Aaron Glenn?
Yeah, he
Like,
coached for the Detroit Lions.
yeah,
He
like
used to
little
play
dude.
for the Jets.
You said
And
what?
he used to play corner for the Jets, and then he played for
Yep.
the Texans and later in his career.
Yeah, later in his career.
Yep.
Man, and so like, and I used to watch him a lot too, because I'm like, man, he cold. But then I'm like, dang, like he's little. Like when I've seen him in person, but he really got me to understand, man, like from a professional aspect, like what it means to be a pro, right?
Okay.
Because he had been in the league by I think like 10 years by then, 10, 11 years, something.
Yep.
And so he was telling me, we was outside, we was walking out to the field. Of course, he's gonna talk about, hey, Ruck, man, you get on the team, save your money, right? And so that was one of the first things he said. But then one thing he said, he's like, yeah, um, how many hours of film do you think I watch? And I'm like, I don't know, 5, 10. I don't. That's how much I'm watching, right, in college. And he was like, yeah, like during the season, I'm watching anywhere from 20 to 40 hours of film a week. I'm like, what? And he's like, like I watch him on you, I watch him on Andre. Like I know your tendencies better than you know your tendencies,
What?
and I know Andre's tendencies. And I'm sitting here like, I'm going, what? Like, but it just really was kind of like, man, like, okay, this is why he's been in the league 10 years, because it's his craft and he takes it, and it was just another level to where it's like, oh, okay, I see, I really got to get on it. So like I said the first like week, and it wasn't you could tell it was an adjustment for Andre too, right? But like I said, like the first week, like Aaron was kind of like locking Andre up a lot, and for Andre, I could just tell where he was just, it was just a matter of time before he kind of started doing his thing. But it was just like you got Aaron Glenn, who's half his size, that's able to stay with him just because of the knowledge that he's brought, and that was where I was just like, man, like a lot of people don't understand from a professional athlete standpoint, like how smart some of these dudes are, and just how much they understand about their craft. You know what I'm saying? Because people just look at it like, oh, they running around, they doing this, they doing that. I'm like, bro, like you have no idea, like just how the work these dudes put in. Anyway, I know that's a tangent, but I'm just saying, like,
No, actually, I had
you
a
know,
guest came on that actually played with Aaron Glenn.
yeah,
I think his name was Ronnie Coleman. He talked about he played safety, and he talked about basically you get to a certain point in your athletic career where your talent and your skills get you there, but later down the line, when that talent and skill kind of diminish, the IQ for all the studying, film studies
Bro.
and techniques and learning the receiver tendencies and things of that nature, that gives you that edge to break on balls and
Yeah.
cut off routes and use the sideline as a defender and things of that
Yeah.
nature. And knowing basically what type of route tree the receiver's going to run.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, because like I promise you, I learned more in 2 months than I learned in 4 years in college there, bro.
Dang.
Like, that's just how much, because I was telling my brother this, and I was like, bro, I could literally feel myself like just getting smarter, like on a daily basis with the game, and because I remember like one of my last practices, like it was one of the smoothest routes I'd ever ran. I could just feel like when I ran the route, you know what I'm saying? I get chills thinking about it now because I could just go back to like that memory. I was like, man, that's the best damn route I ever ran in my life. But it was just because like the coaching, like the aspect, like really understanding, like starting to understand the game more. Like when guys talk about how the game slows down, like, man, that's all real, because they put in that work. It's a craft, So.
Well, I got some highlights I want to show for the Texans. This is like 2003 when they played against Ricky Williams and the Dolphins. They came out with the victory. For everybody that's watching, make sure you subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Deezer, Facebook, and Instagram. We have former Houston Texan wide receiver Alfonso Pough. All right, former standout from Truman College. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Stay with me, Alfonso. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
They've won 11 straight on opening day. I mean, this was going to be easy. And they've also had won 17 straight home games in August when they play on August 31st or September. So this was easy. And I mean, Houston is in their second year. And Jay Fiedler's going to hit Chris Chambers, one of the Chambers brothers. Time has come today. 57 yards, 7-3 in a very interesting field, which had infield dirt, which had grass, which had AstroTurf, which had hard pan at any rate. 7-6 Fiedler. Watch this play by Chambers. How does he keep the feet down? Touchdown, Tommy, 14-6 Miami.
Yeah, we're going to take another look at this play from behind the quarterback. You see Fiedler looking down the football field. 7 Texans there to deflect the pass, but Chambers looks to the only place he can get open, back of the end zone, and what a great
It's a big stage, Tom. That's why there's 7 Texans. At any rate, Dom Capers, we forgot one fact. Dom Capers, Texans 1-0 lifetime on opening day. They've never lost on opening day. Ricky up to nothing. Then later on, Ricky Williams, because, he's certainly going to, well, maybe nothing. Then look at that. I mean, good job by the Texans defense. And here is a fumble, which Charlie Clements, the big man, toots the saxophone. He recovers. Rough day for Ricky. Tom, nice analysis by me. That was supposed to be yours.
That's all right.
Texans trail 14-6. Carr to Corey Bradford. Why don't you take this because he's gone, evading 3 tackles.
Well, and the thing you want to look at is offensively, they went to the 3-step drop, the 5-step drop. They got the ball out of David Carr's hand. This guy was sacked 76 times last year, an NFL record for one guy. No sacks today by the Dolphins.
And he hung in all year long, too. You knew that they got the right guy at QB. Here's a little flip to Ricky. And with the Dolphins trailing 15-14 in the fourth quarter, with only one shoe, he scores 35 yards. 20-15 Miami. Now it's 2018, 2nd-12 Dolphins. Now Tom, oh no! It's picked up by Marcus Coleman. They're throwing. I know it's 2nd-12, but what? Meanwhile, sets up Chris Brown. Good! It's good. He was 5 for 7 on field goal. Chris Brown. Dum 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 dee dum 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 dum. Come Go With Me by the Del Viking, courtesy of Berman and Jackson. And what a win for the Texans, who never lost at opening day, 21-20. And for Miami, you have a theory.
Well, you have to think psychologically. When they looked at this schedule, they saw the Houston Texans. We've won 11 opening days in a row. Let's look to game 2. Big mistake by this ball club.
And Carr.
All right, we back. So, Alfonso, talk to me and tell me what type of coach was Dom Capers?
Man, I got a funny story for that too. Real quick, Chris Chambers, man, I used to watch him a lot at Wisconsin. He was a beast at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And then I seen CB run that touchdown in. That man had some of the strongest hands I'd ever seen by a receiver, and he was skinny. But he always told me, he's like, this is what you need to do. You need to get on this machine, because they had like remember the grip machine in the weight room?
Yeah.
Bro, he used that thing probably 1,000 times, like a day because his hands was you could just tell by looking at his hands like he had used that thing a ton. But anyways, sidebar. But man, Capers was cool. But a quick story about him. So, man, we was sitting there. I want to say it was like, man, it's like maybe 3 or 4 days in, right? It might have been like only 2 days in. But Antron Peak, he gets up on stage, and like the way the auditorium was set up, it was kind of like that. The auditorium where the seats is all in the back, then they come down, then you got the stage up front.
Yep.
He gets up there. We coming after practice, and so we coming after practice. We have a quick meeting, then we go eat, then we go hit weights. Well, we're coming there for a meeting. Antron Pete gets up on the stage and lays up on the stage, and I'm like, "What's he doing?" He gets up on the stage and lays down, sleep on the stage, and so I'm nervous for him, and I'm like, "Man, what's about to happen?" So we all get in there. All the coaches come in. All the coaches walk past, don't even say anything. So I literally was gonna get up and go wake him up, like, bro, like you need to get up. So they're like, no, don't nobody say anything. So Capers comes in, looks, and so I'm like, oh, he about to embarrass him in front of all of us. Does a speech, like all that, while he's asleep on the stage. I'm like, what the hell? So, and then breaks and all that. So by the time, like we had left, from what I was told, by the time we had left the auditorium to by the time they got down to the offices, right? His agent was already there. Capers was in the office, and like we could hear him screaming, and the weight room was all the way at the other end of the stadium. So you can hear him screaming, and I was just like, bro, what? And I'm like, I don't ever want to piss that man off because I ain't trying to hear him scream at me like that.
Yeah.
But
wow, that's bold too.
he seemed cool. Like we didn't have a lot of dialogue, but he seemed like a good dude. And all position coaches, they was all good dudes. I mean, I had never been screamed at that much in my life, but I knew I was learning. So I mean, I knew it was gonna happen. You know what I'm saying?
I understand. So after you leave the Texans, what was next for Alfonso Pough?
Man, so like man, I left them, and to be honest, man, I was kind of like, obviously I was super disappointed, right? Mm-hmm. And so after that, I was like, okay, what's the next step? So then I went to play arena ball, and I played with the Lubbock Lone Stars in Texas. Mm-hmm. So Lubbock, the Lubbock Lone Stars is kind of like a feeder league. It was the IFL league. So it was like the league right below that. Then it was a league right below Arena 1. So basically, if you did well in that league, then you go to Arena 1. Mm-hmm. So I ended up playing down in Lubbock. To be honest, man, I was one of the most talented teams I played on. Like, some of these dudes were just great athletes, right? I think I was one of 2 guys that was not from Florida, California, or Texas. It was me and another dude from Alaska, one of our offensive linemen. But outside of that, everybody else is from them states. So we played down there. I mean, we was really good. And then I ended up getting injured. So I ended up injuring my ankle pretty bad. I ended up messing some tendons up. So I got my season cut short there, but I was top 2 receiver on the team there. And I was looking to go to Arena 1 before I got injured. So then I got injured, came back home. And then I ended up, was like, okay, man, maybe I got to start working. You know what I'm saying? But then I was like, man, I want to give football another shot. So I ended up coaching at the same time. I was coaching for Knox College. I coached the receivers at local Division III. Because I was like, man, maybe I want to get into coaching. Well, I started coaching, and then I started realizing pretty quick, like, hey, man, this takes a lot of time up. Now I understand like why my coaches look tired at practices. You know what I'm saying? So I ended up coaching for 2 years there because I liked the staff. Like I was from Galesburg. Knox is in Galesburg, so I just it worked. So I was like, man, I don't want to go down the coaching path, but I still wanted to play. So I ended up playing for the Quad City Steamrollers for 2 years after that. And then yeah, they were Arena 2. I played with a dude named Jack Walker. So he played with like Kurt Warner when he was with the Barnstormers, and like Jack was just like one of those dudes, cool cat, super talented. So I was basically like kind of like his like protege underneath him. And so when he was going to leave, then I was going to take over and be the offensive specialist for the Steamrollers.
Okay.
So arena ball was fun, but then I was just kind of like, man, like, if I'm not getting back in the league, to me, it's just not worth it, right? I'm like, I want to be able to run around my kids. I ain't trying to like be hobbling around,
Yeah.
And so then I ended up leaving the arena ball because they wanted me to come back the next year to be the offensive specialist, and I was like, man, I'm good. Like I ended up taking a job with Enterprise Rent a Car, and I was like, man, I'm good, man. I'm gonna just try to do this work thing for a little bit,
Yeah.
So then I ended up working for Enterprise for 2.5, 3 years, and then after that, that's when I ended up getting on with John Deere Company. So John Deere is based out of Moline, Illinois, and so like everybody in that group in the Midwest, like if you want to work for a great company or something, like Deere is like the creme de la creme. So I ended up getting on with Deere and in their sales and marketing department, and I had a career with Deere for 13 years. So between that and one of the dealers. So
what is Alfonso Pough up to now?
Man, so I actually my wife, so when we started dating, her parents ran a commercial cleaning company.
Okay.
And so quick story on that, one night, I'm like, oh, y'all clean, that's cool and all that. And so then we're sitting there hanging out one night, and they was like, hey, if you guys want to help us clean the bar tonight, you guys can. I'm like, what? So, man, it's like 3 a.m, bro.
Yep.
They call us, hey, can you guys come help us clean this bar? I'm like, are you serious? Like, okay, I guess if I'm gonna be with your daughter, I gotta go clean this bar. You know what I'm saying?
Package deal.
Yeah, package deal. So we end up going to clean the bar, and I was like, oh, that ain't that bad. Like, how much I'm making? And I was like, oh, that's pretty damn good. Like, I was like, man, have y'all started to try to do this as a business? So I started kind of thinking in, because I have a business marketing background, and my wife, she's got a business background too. So we ended up starting a cleaning company back in Galesburg, and we ran it there for 6 years. And now when we moved out to Denver, we started making the cleaning company bigger. So now we own a commercial and post-construction cleaning company. So I do that, and then I day trade stock options during the day. So stock options, stock futures, and so yeah, man. And I guess kind of one of the things I'd like to do with that eventually is I'll start helping former athletes, really, man, just teaching them how to trade and invest. And I mean, man, I'm sure you've heard, we've all heard the stories of athletes and going broke or just making money, then all of a sudden they don't know what they want to do with it, and everybody has that money grab, like, oh, let me help you do this, but I'm gonna charge you X amount of dollars. I'm like, I want to be that dude to be like, hey, man, I don't need no money. Let me just teach you how to trade and give me some free tickets. You know what I'm saying?
For real. There you go.
Yep.
So what is your message to the youth, Alfonso?
Man, I'd say like one of the main things, I mean, like I said earlier, man, is like, have confidence in yourself. Like, you've got to be confident in yourself. You know what I'm saying? And the biggest thing is like, what's really going to separate you from everybody else, man, like, and get you there quicker is like, you cannot be afraid to put the work in. Like, if you put that work in, and like I always tell my son, I'm like, bro, it's about getting in your reps. Get your reps in. And like I told him, I was like, hey, man, it's not about, I always say, I was like, don't focus on, you know what I'm saying? Don't focus on the prize, right? You always want to focus on the process. If you focus on the process, you automatically gonna get that prize.
Yep.
And so, that's probably in a nutshell for me.
True. Any shout outs before we head out?
Man, I just appreciate Alan hooking me up with you, bro. And
okay.
Man, and to you, man, good luck with it, man. I appreciate you having me on, man, and I enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? So,
man. Would you recommend the show for any other former teammates or athletes?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure, man. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, appreciate it.
No problem, man. I'd love to have you back on. We can talk about a particular subject. We do talk about mental wellness here on this podcast, and
Oh, that's dope.
the effects of CTE as well for most
Yep.
football players, and just other financial literacy things that's going on with former athletes. Some become agents, some become coaches, and some,
Yeah.
just become businessmen and owners, just like yourself. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing that wisdom. And for
Yep.
everybody that's watching, you just tune in to a new edition of the Sports Shop 27. I'm your host, Jermaine Coulter. I'd like to thank my special guest, former Houston Texan wide receiver and kickoff and punt returner, Mr. Alfonso Pough. All right. He's a non-entrepreneur and he's a day trade stock owner. Okay. If you need any consulting, hit him up. You can follow him on Facebook or Instagram, and we can see what type of money he can make for you. Okay. All right.
Sir. Appreciate you, man.
Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel on YouTube, Spotify, Deezer. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Our motto is not how you start, it's how you finish. Until next time, we'll see you guys. Alfonso, just hold on 1 second after the show.
Yep.
And then everybody else, you have a good night. Peace.